Hello, nice to see you all. Nice to see you, Terry. Let's kick off Disruption from Design Horizons. Welcome, everybody. We have a packed agenda today, so I won't keep you waiting too long. We are going to hear experts from financial services, e-commerce, quick commerce, payments, and more. And we're going to talk mostly design, but also a lot of business. But design mostly, AI-powered design, design leadership, next generation UX research, and so on. I would like to thank you all of our fantastic speakers for joining us today. Great to have you on stage. And let's start with the first topic. Here is Terry Behan from Netbank. Terry, hi.
Hey, Radek, good to see you.
Terry, good to see you. Our session is about business design, and when I think about design, I mostly think about clothes or nice things, maybe a watch. But like business, can I design a business? What does it mean?
Sure, it's an interesting space, especially for designers. It's arguably relatively new, but I think the way to think about it is as follows. I mean, your product is predominantly what designers are focused on, but you've got your business model, which is the vehicle that takes the product to market, and they're fundamentally different things. And I think as the industry shifts, as the requirements of designers become bigger and obviously broader in the context of leaning in a lot harder to business, that shift from just good old-fashioned design into business design, being that kind of combination of good design thinking and business strategy, I think is growing rapidly, and we're seeing some sort of really clear growth models that are accelerating businesses forward.
Why I was asking this question, so I was never a designer. Maybe I was a game designer at most. I've started a few businesses. Right now, I'm helping running a business here at our company, and I was thinking like, what is to be designed? Honestly, isn't this business simple? Like I have some goods or services, I just sell them, market. I look at the cost basis, and either it's a good business, I make money, or is it a bad business and I lose money? What is to be designed, honestly, right? Okay, can you tell us why should I even care about this?
Sure. So I think we're operating in an environment that's becoming increasingly commoditized. So the things that we make to sell are widely available in abundance, in some cases highly undifferentiated. In some cases, the business model is the thing that provides differentiation. So maybe give you some examples, because I think it comes to life when you talk about it. So there's lots of different kind of products. A good example would be Hilti. So we would all know Hilti as that big kind of gun that puts steel pop rivets into a wall. Well, that's the product. But the business model is shifted for Hilti. Hilti used to sell that to industrial companies onto building sites. But in reality, building managers and site managers don't want large equipment lying around building sites they have to own. They want equipment that, or in this case with the Hilti gun, they want to put a hole in the wall. That's what they're buying. So Hilti realized that it was not while the product was valuable, the business model was not. So what they did was they shifted to selling the product, to providing what you would call product as a service. They said, no, we're not going to sell you the equipment anymore. We're going to provide you the uptime, or we're going to guarantee you the uptime. And we're going to put a premium on that. So the product remained the Hilti kind of gun, but the actual business model shifted to a product as a service model. And in an economic downturn, they saw a 30 to 60% upshift in revenue, because they had an insight that sort of drove that differently. Another good example of that is Peloton. So Peloton have been making spinning bikes for quite a while. And a number of years ago, they said, well, actually, you know what? It's kind of lonely being on a bike all by your lonesome. So what we're going to do is we're going to pivot that, and we're going to kind of, you got to think about the prototype for this, which is a spinning bike, an iPad, and a roll of duct tape. And we're going to now move into the content business. And what they were able to do was shift from just selling the bike to selling a content subscription that put the user or the rider onto a class, either synchronous or asynchronous, with 200 of their closest friends, with rock star instructors. And they saw their sales rocket up, and they saw their subscription model fly. Obviously, they've expanded rapidly, and they did that just before COVID. So they had a massive expansion during that period. but they're fun. One was fundamentally different to the other, but the combination of things created a kind of winning business. I mean, the list goes on. You see it in fast-moving consumer goods. Something as sort of simple as the sort of the razor, business called $1 Shave Club.
Yeah, yeah.
Men don't really dispose of their razors very often, so they would set up a subscription model, which was one of the sort of big upswing in direct-to-consumer models, where instead of buying the product occasionally in the supermarket, and you would normally forget because it's an occasional purchase, they would set that up as a subscription. And they sold that business a number of years ago to Gillette for about $1 billion.
Right.
They just sort of sold it back to a private equity firm. But there's quite a few examples where the product that we sell, if it's locked into a smart business model, creates much greater opportunity for scale.
Right. So Terry, this all sounds too easy, honestly speaking. Like you provided me this groundbreaking insight, which means they don't want a machine, they want a hole in a wall, which sounds easy, right? When you explain this on this conversation, but my assumption is based on experience, it is not so easy to spot it when you run a business, right? We've always delivered machines. If someone tells you, you know what, focus on delivering service of drilling holes and rethink your go-to-market, your communication, your everything, your service design towards this mission, I assume it is pretty hard both to see this chance, but also then to execute. So what is the role of business designers? Is it their mission to spot such things, or how if I run a business, what would we advise me to see those things which are not obvious at the first sight when you're in the trenches?
Sure, that's solid. I mean, for a number of firms, arguably, their business model is the competitive advantage. So they've not been very quick to share that information out with the world. But I think there's a couple of very simple stages that you can govern this against. They're loosely called the stages of fit. So you start off with something called problem solution fit. So I see a problem in the market, I develop a solution for that problem. And that's typically a value proposition. And most organizations do that relatively well. Then you once you've solved for that, the next problem to solve for is something we call product market fit. So it's all well and good that you have a capability or a value proposition, but you've got to design a product. And that product has to have utility. And that utility has to be something that, in other words, the user has to be able to tell you, I'm willing to use that product. And most likely, I'm willing to stop using other products. Now, the product has to solve that problem. Your business model is not going to solve that problem. But then comes the third phase. But those are those are the entry criteria for growth. Then you come to the third phase, which is, okay, I have a good product. People are telling me it's functional. It has utility. How do I think about scale? And that's where the business model component comes in.
Okay.
What I often see is the confusion between the two. Is teams going, no, I'm just going to focus on the business model, but the product's not particularly functional or it doesn't work. That's not going to help. It's a stage gate process. But once you've got clarity on, you have utility and the product that you have is working, it's getting positive feedback, now you're probably ready to start thinking about the business model a little bit differently. And I think that's where there's a bit more science that comes into it. Obviously, it's an experimental process because there are multiple different kinds of business models, and it's worth exploring them and looking into them and explaining the different types. But essentially, once you have the functional product in place, it is then worthwhile saying, right, how do I scale this product? And what is the most appropriate business model to take that product to market or to help me maybe shift and scale?
Are there any frameworks or guidelines
Sure.
I should be aware of if I am doing this? I imagine that you can have a lot of businesses that have this, good product, some initial traction. Customers say it is fine, but the business might be struggling with how to design this business. So I think such frameworks could be helpful, right?
No, for sure. And there's quite a few, and I think we use a lot of them with high degrees of frequency, and we maybe don't kind of analyze and dissect them. So maybe some classic examples, and maybe let's start off with the obvious one, is the kind of freemium to premium model. So I have a product, I may be willing to give away aspects of that product for free. So I widen my conversion funnel, and then I see who likes that product and is willing to go to a premium subscriber. So Spotify is the classic example of freemium to premium. You can get the freemium product, but there's built-in friction in the product. So you don't want to be that guy who's hosting a party on a Saturday night and the vibe is going, and then that ad comes in where it tells you, how cool Spotify is. So that sort of freemium to premium model is quite important. That's one of the options. And it's a very scientific model because they typically know what their conversion rates are. So they don't really focus on the conversion. They focus on the front of the funnel. If I can get more people in, more people just testing the product, I kind of know between 5 to 7% of people will convert over time.
Yeah.
So that's an obvious one. Another one is a subscription model. So subscription model is typically where I want a product, but I can't afford it. So a good example would be a gym membership, or Virgin gyms is a big one globally. There's lots of them, where I want the product, but I can't afford the product, so I'm willing to subscribe. Now we understand that, like, we don't think about that as a business model, but that's a classic business model. I've seen that applied into food packaging businesses, where the freeze-dried meals are delivered to your home on a subscription basis. So you get a box at the beginning of every week. In fact, the one where I live in South Africa, in Cape Town, kind of recently sort of sold, I think it was 18 months ago, for quite a substantial sum. And they built a very simple proposition, which is people want warm, home-cooked meals, but they probably don't have the time to prepare them. So they would prep those meals. They would sell a subscription model online, and then magically on a Monday afternoon, your 7-day box shows up, and then you've got food at home for the week. And it's efficient, it's effective, and it's a good cost management tool. We spoke loosely about the product as a service one, where you have, I want the solution the product provides, but I want the burden of that. So that's really more of a, let's say, at scale product. So we spoke about Hilti. Hilti does that. The other people that do it really well are Rolls-Royce. So the engines, not the
engines,
cars.
right?
So you can't buy a Rolls-Royce engine. Certainly not the ones that are on,
you can try
onto an airplane.
You can try, but probably expensive, right?
You can maybe get the one in a car, but you certainly can't get the one on an airplane. Why? What are they selling to the airlines? They're selling uptime. Luckily for us. And what are they guaranteeing? They're guaranteeing 100% uptime. So they're selling the service, not the product. A good example is in emerging economies across the world. We're seeing this sort of, as countries grow, there's an increased demand on electricity, and the demand is starting to outstrip supply. So solar in many Southern Hemisphere countries is becoming a preferred mechanism of providing electricity into the home, but solar is expensive. Correct. So there are many companies that are spinning up that are selling solar as a product as a service. In other words, I'll charge you a monthly fee. I will install on your roof. I will put the meter in place, and you don't have to buy it, but you'll pay me. You'll pay me that. And maybe just other classic examples are cooperative ownership. So maybe we want a smaller group of people want something. So let's call it, the good example is agricultural equipment. So I see arable land. I want to farm that land, but the equipment's expensive. So I go into a co-op with 5 or 6 other farmers, and we form an entity that purchases the equipment, and then we share that equipment. So companies like John Deere mastered the art of doing that because they provide cooperative ownership models, and they actually go out and seek out farmers and put them into co-ops so they can sell them the equipment. And then maybe just close out on 1 or 2 other ones. I think one of my favorite ones is this idea of micro packaging. So the product remains the same. I have a product, maybe coffee, deodorant, butter, washing detergent is a big one. But in mass markets, which represent about 80% of humanity, or in emerging economies, which represent 80% of humanity, people can't afford a 5 kg bag of washing detergent. So they've scaled that down to micro packaging, where I'm buying the same product, but at a maybe 50-gram bag of that particular product. And that has seen massive scale in emerging economies. And probably my favorite is something called product on demand. So I kind of have an idea. I want to make a product, but I'm not sure if it's going to scale. So I go to somewhere like Kickstarter. I build a prototype. I put the prototype up on Kickstarter. And then depending on the number of people who purchase an investment in that prototype will determine if it's going to scale or not. So I think, Radek, there's just a long list of different types of business models that one can consider when looking at your particular business or at your particular product. Not every business model is going to work for every product. It is a process of experimentation, but you can test that out. You can test it out with your customers. And that testing process is free. You don't have to build the business model. You can go prototype it and then go do the rounds with your customers and see if they maybe have an interest in that and ultimately get to an outcome that's positive.
Before I ask a next question, just quick shout out to the people who are watching. If you have a question for Terry, just write it down in a place you're watching, and hopefully we will be able to pick it up quickly and ask this question to Terry. We have around 10 to 15 minutes to do so, so please let us know. And going back to conversation, Terry, when you've mentioned all of those things, and I assume this is a disruption, the forum focus on design, there are a lot of people from design engineering teams that might be interested in this topic, especially in digital space, because I believe those decisions impact how the products are being built and designed, right? Not only the business, with the design of a business, but if you make a decision that it is going to be a freemium or a subscription, there are different expectations from the end users, and there are different expectations towards infrastructure, but also how it is being designed, right? I did games. The freemium game is a completely different game versus AAA game. So any tips on that, how you should manage such a business design decisions with say design and engineering decisions later on? Are they interconnected, or where should we start?
Sure, that's a big question. So I think maybe going back to the first point is to acknowledge that they're separate things. Many low-end, highly consumed games, their business model is simple enough. I'm just there to harvest your information and harvest your data. There's really no other play. I'll create an app. It's a very kind of light app. It can be easily downloaded. It can be played remotely, but because that app is been opened, it's harvesting, depending on whether you're on iOS or Android, a lot of different data in the background, and that is being sold on. So a lot of digital products are front end experiences for data collection. I think that's important to note. But if we're getting into sort of the whole discussion around scale and around business models as a vehicle for scale, I think it's incumbent upon engineering teams and design teams to step away from the product occasionally and to go, how are we going to take this to market? What are the steps that we need to go through? And is there optionality out there? Because we might feel constraints. And something worse sometimes, Radek, than seeing a good product that you can see is functionally a good product, and you can see there's no thought whatsoever been given to the business model. They're just trying to sell it in the same channel they sold the previous product in. And that product then has limited ability to scale.
Right, or there is a frustration that the old ways of doing things with new more business design won't fly, right? And maybe there's issues that you're addressing the wrong tree, or solving the wrong problem, right?
No, spot on. I mean, the sense for me is I teach in a number of MBA programs, and I teach modules on innovation and design, and I combine them together. And a lot of the struggles that the students that I see have, and this is in different markets, is they all come up against the same problem. They're under pressure to ship a product to market quite quickly, which is common. But I think what I've often noted is, from a leadership point of view, from a design leadership point of view, it's incumbent on us to create the space to think about the product and beyond the actual functionality of it, and to really look at the different optionality on business model. And I think the key thing is, I think you raise an important point around risk, because there's often a concern that is, well, we're taking too much risk here, so we don't want to change how we ship that product to market. So I would say the answer is a very simple one. It's called growth hacking. You don't have to go full tilt. You can, let me go back to the Hilti example. Hilti does not sell 100% of its product through the sort of product as a service model. It depends on the market, let's call it 50-50. It sells a good chunk of it through that, because some people want that. They want the contract, they want the uptime, they just want the hole in the wall. They want guaranteed replacements within 24 hours. Others want the equipment.
Okay.
How do they get there? Slowly. What they did was they said, hold on, we think there's a demand for this. So they tested it out with a small group of users. Those users said, no, we like it. Then they sort of scale that to a bigger group of users. So I often say, your job is to get your first customer. Then it's 5, then it's 50, then it's 500, maybe then it's 5,000, and then you're off to the races. So I think it's concerned. So how should these things be done, especially with existing products? I think conservatively and sensibly. But I do believe that creativity and design has a massive role to play in that, because I think once we kind of like you see this idea of different business models, I think you can't unsee it. So you start to assess yourself, your competitors through different business model lenses, and we see it through there.
There's a first question from the audience. Filip Sobiecki. Hi, Filip. Nice to see you. We haven't spoke for a long time. He asks, we evolved in terms of interacting with data. The first interface was World Wide Web. Second was mobile app. Fast forward 2024 or 5, the newest interface is conversational AI, or is it? That's a question. And maybe my question will be, so how do we adapt towards it, right? And of course, thank you for the first AI question today. Congratulations.
The first of many, I'm sure. So my sense is this is a real big debate. So I cover a lot of bases, but I spend the majority of my time with Nedbank in the financial services sector. So it's a big debate in the industry. What is the interface of the future? On the one extreme, it's just a button on your screen with a highly intelligent interface that's able to interpret and predict your requirements, and in many cases interfaces for you with other interfaces on your behalf. That's the one extreme, and that's certainly an option. And then on the other extreme, it's, well, I want to still go through a kind of like a click down hamburger menu, a choice architecture to get to those decisions. I think the answer is going to be, into the future, the user will decide.
Yeah.
So what I'm seeing at the moment is, with a lot of leading banks globally, is they're working out both, and they're allowing the user to determine what kind of interface they want to have, because not everybody wants to talk to a machine. Some people still, it might be generational, some people still want to go through a logical sequence, because it's a patterned behavior, that it's got low cognitive load that they're used to, and they're very happy with that. And I look at, like, my children, they are, and have had for many years, a chat interface who they've personalized, they've given, it has learned, it sort of helps them with their homework, it goes and finds things for them, it's sort of like a pet, almost, like, that's highly intelligent. And I think as we go into the future, the objective of a design team is not to determine whether it's one or the other. It's to allow the user to make that choice themselves, but to be prepared to be able to provide scalable interfaces that can go either way.
That's a great answer. No one is asking me, but I will answer myself. So how I see this is basically a lot of depends of task that you are trying to solve with a given tool, and if you need a deterministic or not deterministic answer. And with those chatbots and conventional AI, I think they're great for, I would say, less hardcore, more lightweight tasks. When having an answer which is a text or a picture or something like that, which is not fully deterministic, it's fine. But whenever you want to transfer money to someone from your family right now, I don't think that the chat interface works that well. Like, did I really send it? Like, is it? Can you confirm me 100%? Like, I don't know, right? It just doesn't feel right. I want this huge button and a huge confirmation, right? And the email receipt. So I think it will all depend, in my view, on the context and which are the jobs to be done, right? With those solutions. And I agree with you, Terry, that the users will decide which one is the right one. The funny thing, it will be that the AI might be behind all of those things, but you will still want to see this huge, green button with a confirmation afterwards, even though it doesn't matter what happens, beneath it. So I am also super interested how it will, evolve. So we have 3 minutes left, and we already started the AI thing. So, or maybe it was so late. So my question is regarding those business models, design, and the designing of businesses and AI. Is AI opening potentially new models for new type of designs for businesses that we should be aware of, or is it too early to tell?
it's opening them up so fast, it's hard to keep up. I think the challenge is speed and optionality from an AI point of view does not necessarily equal good. So I'll give you an example. Both Miro, it's a classic design tool, and Figma are, have early stage prototypes where they're able to auto-generate screens. Certainly Miro can auto-generate screens based on sort of text-based sort of prompts. Now, what you know and I know, and certainly the design community will know, is that it takes a lot of hard work to really build something that is intuitive, that is easy to use, and that serves the user's needs. One of the big concerns that I have from an efficacy point of view at the moment is that the tools coming into the market will potentially be overused or used incorrectly, and we'll see a lot of interface, a lot more. So the cost of designing an interface is going to come down. That means more people are going to enter the market and try and do it. So what are you going to see in the market is a lot more bad stuff or poor interfaces and fewer better ones. So I think that if we're talking just classic kind of design interface AI, I think we're going to end up like the music industry. And if you look kind of the Spotify top playlists, who gets played on Spotify? Well, Taylor Swift. The top 10 to 20 artists take 90 to 95% of the revenue, and then the remaining 5% is shared out amongst 10 to 20,000. So good is not good enough anymore. There's going to be a lot, I think a huge amount of reliance on smart, intelligent designers to guide smart, intelligent tools, but you have to put them together. I think once you separate them out and you have anybody just entering a prompt and coming up with a solution, I think that's just not going to be a suitable, scalable solution in the market. Because guess what? The market is not growing. The market's going to remain relatively finite. So we've got to serve those users a lot better. And I think that's certainly the role of the designer. And I would argue two things. One, get on top of the new tools coming out, master them, because if you don't, somebody else will. But also going back to the original discussion around business model design, is that's AI ain't going to help with business model optionality anytime soon. It's just nowhere near ready. So I think there's still that role of smart, creative thinkers who can look at different options and come up with even new ways of taking a product to market that will help scale the industry, so designers, but also the products that we build and serve.
Terry, thank you for this answer and conversation. Before we end, just a quick segue into our internal stuff at Netguru. You can call it auto promo. We are soon publishing a guide about AI assistants or AI agents or whatever you call this new thing. I strongly believe this is something that can change some of the business design models for us in professional services. I think it is most likely, but also in different software as a service businesses as well. It is going to be out soon. Stay tuned, and maybe you will get the message out of our team after the event. Again, if you have questions for Terry, maybe he will be happy to answer them after the show. I hope he's fine with adding him on LinkedIn and asking more questions. Terry, thank you very much for the conversation. It was great to have you, and see you soon.
Thanks, Radek, and best of luck for the rest of the day. And by all means, if someone wants to hit me up on LinkedIn, I promise I'll get back to them as soon as possible.
You heard Terry, so do that if you're more interested in this exciting topic. Thank you. See you. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Hello. So, my name is Bartek. I'm heading the amazing team of designers here at Netguru, and our topic is perspective on ethical design and digital well-being. And I'm delighted to be joined by a pair of really remarkable guests today. So let's start by inviting each other to introduce themselves. So, Matthias Wickman.
Good morning from LA. My name is Matthias Wickman. I'm head of design at Ethic in New York. Ethic is a company that blend finance with sustainability. So we create personalized portfolios that align with your values. My background in design started roughly 20 years ago. My first job was at IBM Innovation, where I was part of redesigning NewYorkTimes.com as a junior designer. But then kind of from early days, we called it web design then, I think it's called product design nowadays, moved over to advertising, into branding, but then slowly came back into product design roughly 15 years ago. And that's been my space. And super excited to be here. I love ethical design. I think it's such an important topic. So yeah, over to you, Kieran.
Cool, thanks a lot, Matthias. So yeah, my name's Kieran Weston. So I look after the design function for Visa here in Singapore. So it's 10:30 at night here, so the morning on your side of the world. But yeah, my role here is looking after the validation of new product concepts, the implementation of new products, and more sort of less net new, more existing products in the Visa suite. I mean, you guys and people on the call would be familiar with Visa as a issuer of credit cards. We don't issue the cards, the banks issue the cards, and we kind of control the rails on which the money moves. But a big part of our business is more of the value-added services, so doing things around fraud and disputes, commercial money movement, business solutions. So quite a lot of things that you guys wouldn't be so familiar with. My background's very much in product design. Started as a mobile product designer, and in a mobile app specific agency, and then gradually moved into sort of more kind of full service digital agencies. Did a bit of time at Huge, one of the sort of more reputable digital design agencies out in North America. And then yeah, a bit of experience in finance, working for banks in Australia, and then yeah, find myself here at Visa.
Cool, thank you very much. Like I said, remarkable guest. And my first question is, why is this topic important? Matthias.
I mean, I think AI has probably been mentioned a few times already this morning, but I do think with AI, things are starting to move faster. That's number one. But number two, the business landscape of eternal growth and the financial markets of everything is business minded. How do we also make sure that what we're building is not always to make money, but also to actually create something for the long term, a sustainable relationship between a consumer or a user and a brand? I think, again, we've seen now in the past few years when things starts to move faster and faster, because it's a tighter, competitive landscape, but then also AI is moving extremely fast. How can we sometimes just stop and take a look to make sure, hey, are we sure of what we're building? And if we're not, can we talk about it? Should we release early or should we wait? I think that's my point of view.
Kieran, do you share this point?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think specifically in my role, I mean, I'll speak to my position here at Visa. I mean, Visa is about a brand that is built on trust. When you tap your card, you expect that what you paid is what goes out of your account. You expect that what you paid ends up with the person that you bought the product or service from. So, and you expect that to happen incredibly quickly. You don't expect to be standing waiting for your card to be approved. Everybody hates that sort of horror moment when you're standing there waiting for your credit card to be approved. So we built our reputation around trust, and so I feel that ethical design and how we implement, I mean, our issuers implement our products and services, but how products and services are implemented by first or third parties have a lot to do with ethical design. How those and how you end up with a product such as Visa, when you're tapping your card, making sure that the end result is as you expect it to be. And I think with the rise of AI specifically, AI adds an awful lot of risk to that. It's the biggest sort of contributor to fraud. So that's kind of the thing that keeps us up at night when you relate design and AI.
Thank you. And How would you design? How would you define ethical design, and what it's not, for people to understand? Maybe Matthias.
Right. I think it comes down to simple things like, hey, do the right thing for the short term and the long term. But it's really, if we're using words, it's actually to create experiences that are honest and inclusive, transparent, and then also sustainable. Again, what we're building for the short term, how will that affect the long term experience? Or will it empower the user, or will it actually drain the user? What's the intention behind it? And we see this across the world, right? We have certain brands that are super strong brands, and but they potentially do not deliver what they promise. And others are amazing brands of storytelling, and they actually truly deliver what they promise. A few brands, typical, I think everyone kind of agrees, Patagonia is a strong brand. They're privately owned, they're not on the stock market, and therefore they feel they can actually do what they want. They go for the long-term growth, right? And they have a higher price point on their jackets because they want to pay their employees and they want to have better benefits. So I think that company in general is such a great example, but it comes down to honesty and doing the right thing.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think that there are a lot of businesses that have been around a long while that may not be that ethical, but I think in this day and age, it's very easy for businesses to be found out. There are so many unethical practices. People are so familiar with digital. They're so familiar with the dark patterns of design. The inability to opt out, the subscriptions you get locked into, all these kind of things. So people are much smarter and more switched on to the practices. So I think ethical design is a really big factor in the longevity of an organization, not just from as Matthias says, as a brand point of view. Brands that continue to do good, such as Patagonia, is a great example. But other brands that just through their products and services employ ethical design and ensure that they're not doing the wrong thing, because as I said, it's so easy to be found out these days.
Kieran, maybe you can give us examples of how ethical design help positively impact any of your work, or maybe you have some examples of how does this impact?
I mean, I would say my work specifically with Visa, because we're in our cards are on the phones and in the pockets of billions of people in the world. I think recently just in Asia we surpassed 1 billion tokenized credentials, so digital credentials that are out there in the wild. So it's part of it. A product such as ours is part of everyday life. But as we evolve our product suite, so we obviously a lot of our revenue is generated from people tapping cards and the fees that come with that. But an increasing part of our revenue comes from our value-added services. So, and one particular one of those actually two, I think, that lend themselves quite well to ethical design is our product that allows for international money movement. So we kind of manage international money movement between banks through a product. And we also have a buy now, pay later product in Visa installments. So they're two products that have a lot of opportunity for potential misuse. There have been stories around, some of the smaller buy now, pay later players that, the credit terms and the overall credit paid and all those things can get, quite large. So we have a very important part to play there in terms of how we present such things as the interest payable on an installment plan for buying a flat screen TV or something like that, or in making sure that when we tell people that the money that they're moving from, if you're sending money to a relative who needs medical care overseas, knowing that they're going to receive that money within the specified time frame and not just trying to sell that as a way to get them to use that service, thinking that our service will be faster. So there's a lot that we sort of have to offer there in terms of ethical design and the right kind of practices.
Matthias, anything to add, or maybe some exploration as how ethical design maybe prevents some predatory behaviors from occurring?
Yeah, I think, you always have the good and the bad, but before that, I agree with you, Kieran, especially when you brought up Visa, like the trust when you tap your card every time, you don't think about it, it just works. And I think that comes back to how some brands are transparent in a way. they're just part of your everyday life, but you have a strong relationship to them, but you take it for granted. But until the day that it doesn't work, and then you start wondering why. But sometimes if you have a strong brand, you even think about it, it's probably not their fault, it's probably the system, right? So just wanted to mention that when you brought up trust around Visa, because I agree. I think in general, it's okay. So how I think this is a super interesting topic where we have we're moving into virtual, intelligence, right? Also with artificial intelligence, where you could actually, if you have a depression or if you feel lonely, you can start to chat with, ChatGPT or Perplexity, and there's been some, incidents already where you start to rely on artificial intelligence as a real human, and you build a bond. And because the models are so early, what the models are returning in that conversation is not always true. And how do you control that environment for people that are in need to find that friend or looking for answers, but the answer is actually incorrect? How do you actually fact check it? And I think ChatGPT did this early, right? They didn't include a lot of sources, so people started wondering, where is all this information coming from? Because it sounded true, because it's so well presented. But then you can then look at Perplexity, for example, who's really doubled down on sources. So everything you're searching for, they always start off like they're even showing you how they're going through the different, websites and sources to actually present back the answer. But I do think before we can really start to control or like understand what's true and not true, and if we ever will, there will always be like examples where it's not it's not the best.
And we have great question from our audience. So Agata is asking, is AI a risk or the opportunity for more ethical design? We know it's biased, but maybe it's easier for AI to overcome them. Direct.
I mean, I would say, my knee jerk is it's a risk without the right guardrails, and obviously there is a lot of work being done to put those guardrails in place. But I was reading just today actually on in the news around how I think it was David Attenborough was the example, the nature presenter out of the UK, where his voice has been fully cloned. And they're actually finding, a lot of famous people have had their voices fully cloned. David Attenborough being a specific one, because nature programs on the BBC will not be the same without him. But I think they were actually saying how the law is not able to keep up with the pace of artificial intelligence, and so that's where I think there is the risk. But then again, there is a significant opportunity. And that example is an opportunity for my kids to be able to listen to David Attenborough's voice narrating nature programs, which I think for English people and most people around the world into that stuff, kind of sticks with them. And that's if the person who has that voice is willing to give that permission, then I think that's it's a wonderful thing. It's a nice opportunity, but tremendous risk for misuse. We've seen in the US election, the horror stories of the calls that have been made and the imitations of Joe Biden's voice and probably Trump's voice, although I haven't heard so many of those examples. That's where there's a significant risk. But and also, I think in some ways the risk presents an opportunity, because it generates a lot of this content and a lot of these problems that can then be acted upon, and ethical design frameworks, global frameworks can be put in place to really control this situation.
Yeah, I agree. It's almost coming back to well, can we stop evolution and should we stop innovation? I don't think we should. And we talk about this a lot, where we say AI, right? Artificial intelligence. We start using HI, human intelligence, and it's like, how do you find the balance? We have so much to learn about ourselves. So but we're always, as a species, I think that's our strength, but our weakness. We're always trying to evolve. We're always trying to move forward, and finding that sweet spot between, again, finding AI to be utilities or tools to actually have more time to actually understand ourselves, I think is wonderful. I think that's where we'll go. And then the same thing with, ethical design. AI is so fast, right? I think Claude 3.5 Sonnet now, they said early in the year when they launched, I'm not sure what version it was, but maybe 2.5. They used a sweet test, right? They were trying to see, hey, how well can Claude develop code, and they compare that to senior developer. And early in the year, it was like, well, 10%, and then now it's actually up at 75% 10 months later. And of course, we know that the last 10%, at least in human intelligence, is mostly where it takes a lot of time. But they don't know because, hey, this is artificial intelligence, so maybe it's going to go at the same speed to reach 100%. And I think that's where I think we need to find the balance, right? Where, how do you use this?
I love that point around human intelligence. Like, so I think we'll pay a premium for human intelligence, which is great for designers. I think
of course
it'll be AI design, but we'll pay a premium to have a person look
at it. So this makes me think: should ethical design rely on personal integrity, or do you believe this should be some organizational policy, or maybe some government action? So, what do you believe?
I think 3 levels really. It's like the organization and the mission and the vision should, of course, include ethical design. Why we're doing it, what's the intention behind it. I do think it needs to be at the C level, but then you also need to have it at the team level. We have different incentives. The marketing department has different incentives than the engineering department, than the sales. The sales needs to sell. They need to make sales, versus the design team, they want to kind of guardrail and create this beautiful user experience. So it needs to be part of the organization's, vision and mission and values, that what we're trying to create is for the longer good. This is, of course, an ideal situation, right? It's an ideal company that would do this. We know that a lot of companies would, of course, strive to only focus on making money. That's going to be the case. It's always going to be that push and pull. But I do think it needs to go all the way up to the CEO.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I do think that the individual responsibility is a big part of it, though. When I think about, when I'm asked the question, what makes a good designer, for me, it's empathy. Having empathy, particularly for a user-centered designer, as we traditionally know them. So I think having people that have ethics, have that kind of value structure, I think is really important as well, because otherwise, you put a bunch of people into a business that are just there for profit, then they'll do what the business says, but if they have the ethics, they'll push back. You've seen this in Google and Meta. People have been starting, when they see warning signs, they've started pushing back. Google's mantra of don't do evil, when they started doing a bit of evil, people started pushing back, and that was the employees that were pushing back, and usually to their detriment, unfortunately. But yeah, that's kind of, I think, an important starting point. But to Matthias's point, 100%, it's the 3 levels, definitely.
Yeah, so I think this should give our design role quite certainty that we will be needed for the future, and its moral compass is something exclusively human. And but maybe let me lean toward the business a little bit more with another question. So how can companies quantify the impact of ethical design on user trust, retention, and business? And maybe you have some specific indicators you can suggest.
I think the way I think about every metrics that you want to measure, of course, you want to do qualitative and quantitative. The qualitative is, of course, you can do that in so many different ways, right? But and some companies do it really well. You have a close relationship to your clients. You have ambassador groups. You really involve them into, not only to measure what you published or what you pushed out and launched, but you bring them in and you actually build a true collaboration. relationship where you bring certain clients or certain groups into the whole experience to try it out, right? So then early on, because we're only people and we're only designers too. We think sometimes that we have this beautiful idea. The whole company might think that we have this beautiful idea that is truly needed. But when we actually invite people early on, sometimes we see, hey, we were 90% right. Sometimes we're like, hey, this is actually 50% right. We thought that if we spent 3 months building this feature, that everyone would use it. But then we learn early that, hey, that's not true. My daily life looks very different. So I think it kind of starts early too in the whole planning, like invite people early. But then, of course, the qualitative side of measuring happiness through relationships with clients, but then also the quantitative side. I think that's my point of view. What do you see, Kieran?
Yeah, I think I agree on the qualitative approach. I mean, to give the visa example, I mean, we look to do continuous research around the effectiveness of our products, you know, from the, you know, the profitability and the clicks and, you know, making sure that people get through the process quickly, all that good stuff. But I think being able to monitor the ethical impact of a design, you need to do it through that qualitative framework. You know, it's hard to get an understanding of how ethical was that process or that flow or that product or that engagement through, you know, filling out a survey or, you know, answering a couple of yes/no questions. So I think having that continuous feedback loop is very important, and that also not just to, you know, see, you know, pick up the good points of an ethical design, but that's really where you're going to get to the depth of, this, you know, this felt a bit off, this didn't feel quite right, I'm not sure what you were trying to get from me there, do I really need to give that piece of data, all those kind of things that only really come out of very qualitative research. So yeah, that would be my recommendation.
Okay, so let's get a little bit grounded. So how can designers innovate fearlessly while staying ethically grounded? So what tactics would you suggest maybe to younger designers?
I think that continually talking to users, you know, I think you can fearlessly innovate, but as long as you're continuing to speak to users and keeping that regularity, then that will sort of raise any red flags and sort of put you on the right course. Yes, that can impact innovation to a point, but I don't see that there's value in innovating if what you're innovating is not going to do good for society or for your users. You know, it may feel, and then it goes back to that, you know, you're driven by profit. You know, you'll come up with an innovative idea that could generate X billion of dollars in revenue, but to the detriment of the brand or the detriment of mental health, you know, all these sorts of things. So I think that continuous loop is very, very important.
Yeah, I feel the discovery phase in any project should not be questioned, right? So you should be able to say, come up with, there are no bad ideas in the early process, right? You should actually go super wide. And because sometimes I drop an idea that's just half baked, but you take it further, and then someone else takes it further and becomes something that's actually is meaningful. So to be able to like go tactical in the beginning, and I was like trying to frame things because we're afraid or because there are risks, I don't think we should do it that way. I think we should say, hey, this is what we know right now, but let's go and explore and see what we can find, because it might be presented as a risk, but actually that risk can be turned around to and be an opportunity for the right type of feature, function, the user or market. And I think that's the part as designers that we have this strong, or a lot of designers have this amazing expertise where we don't just show, or we don't just tell, but we actually show. We can actually prototype things out, we can sketch things out, we can storytell it and bring people along this journey. And I think we need to then go wide first, and then you kind of bring people along the journey, and then you start to like tweak, and then of course push things out that are not relevant. But the whole discovery phase is all about learning. And then also for designers, you need to go wider. You need to know about the business. You need to know about technology, because if you're only as a designer sitting and designing, if you actually don't know how technology or AI is you know, how it's done or how it works, then you're also sitting already from a very, very limited perspective. So we're playing in our team. We're playing with Rive doing SVGs through automation to we're coding in Claude, and we're working with Gemini, and we don't know what we're doing sometimes, but it's just looking at the input and the output. What am I getting back at what level and how fast, in order to understand that, hey, we know so little, but this is exciting. So don't take away the excitement part. I think that's the most important part in the beginning.
And Kieran, there's an interesting question from the audience. So what ethical guidelines maybe should we introduce to younger designers to help them use AI responsibly? I can see younger designers just using AI to conduct user research and have this as a data to lead product design, etc. So what's your opinion about this?
Yeah, I mean, I think at a base, I would say human-centered design principles, at the core, as Matthias was talking about, discovery being the one piece that you can't sort of skip, and that's where you uncover a lot of potential pitfalls around ethical design. So I'd say, those kind of baseline human-centered design frameworks. I think there's other interesting stuff. I mean, there's even, like, I've been reading recently how the Universal Declaration of Human Rights has been used as, a framework, not fully design related, but it's a framework for doing good. So, if you can find pieces like that actually can relate back to the kind of design that you do. I mean, that's a bit lofty and aspirational, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but I think starting at that baseline of just being human-centered, doing that continuous loop of feedback, and also, having that own kind of moral code. I think we all know what good looks like and what bad looks like. I think we have that moral compass, and as designers, it's that 10 years ago it was about, you need to build empathy. I think moving into the future, as we need to approach design with much more of an ethical framework, it's having that moral compass, sort of making sure that what I'm doing, do I feel like this would harm any of my users? Is this something that I would feel uncomfortable using? And I think we can make those judgments quite easily ourselves.
Thank you, Kieran. And the very last question, very last minute, Matthias, what's the end game? Where can we say that, where's the point that ethical design achieved its mission?
I don't think it's going to achieve its mission in that sense, because there's always a push and pull. I think a widespread adoption, again, trying to actually, as designers, see the obligation and responsibility, but then also the role to do storytelling and evangelism across the teams, different teams, and then, of course, the organization. But I would love to see more frameworks that people can actually learn from. We know we have, so if you look at, for example, you go to Harvard or MIT or Stanford, they have a lot of frameworks that they're working around AI, the ethical parts for AI. And I think that's a good start. I think I would love to see that more widespread. And then continuous evolution, of course. I mean, it's just always going to be around. We're never going to reach the end game. I mean, we're humans, right? We're always finding new things to work on.
So on that note, gentlemen, thank you very much. As for the questions from the audience, I will pass it to you. So have a great night and day, and giving voice over. So thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks very much, guys.
All right, we're live. So welcome everyone on the Developing Design Leadership part of the Disruption Forum Design Horizons. Let me introduce my guests. There's Franziska from Talabat with us, Aristotle from Cognizant, and Abby from Shopify. If you could, everyone, quickly introduce yourself, what you do, and why this topic is close to your hearts, that would be awesome. Let's start with Francisca.
Thanks so much. So my name is Francisca. I work at Talabat. I'm originally from Chile. I've worked across several countries around the world. And I am specifically passionate about design leadership because it's a topic that's close to my heart. I really like empowering others, and it's one of the most rewarding aspects of my career is being able to empower teams and see them succeed.
Thank you so much. Welcome. Avi, you're next.
Hey, nice to meet you. I'm Avi. I'm from Shopify, as you know, originally from Israel, but have lived in London for the last 14 years, something like that. Design leadership is a critical piece in us designers succeeding in companies and a key part of us bringing empathy and users' insights into our work and making things that are fun to use, easy to use, and bring joy to the world. Passing into you, Aristotle.
Thanks so much.
Hi all, thanks for having me today, and it's super interesting talk. It's great pleasure to joining with amazing people too, and thanks for the Netguru team to provide this wonderful opportunity. Yeah, I'm a lead product designer at Cognizant Technology Solution, a service and consulting company in UK. I'm a supporting design initiative for Fortune 500 company clients across various sectors, worked in multiple nations, MEA, Asia, and UK, delivering the business value for global markets. And I attracted with this particularly about the leadership. So we are living in a time of rapid change within a pandemic and remote work, rise of gig economic reshaping how we work. So this makes leadership more critical than ever. So leadership is the only guiding the teams through uncertainty, empowering the individual, and fostering environment where people can thrive. So that is the ultimate thing. So I want to talk about this conversation today. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. I'm Mateusz Jankowski. I'm a design manager in Netguru. I'm going to be your host today. What to say? I'm 7 years old leader, and I simply love this journey of my design career. So I'm happy to have this great guest today and discuss some topics. So let's start with some initial things. So I'm curious, what was your own path to leadership and how to develop those skills along the way? Francisca, I'm totally curious on your path and how it happened.
Yes, of course. So I'm a person that has always been driven by curiosity and the passion of sharing knowledge as well. So my career, I have always looked for opportunities to learn and experiment and just share with others what I have discovered. I started doing graphic design, and I was lucky enough when I graduated university to start my own agency. So I started early on with hands-on exposure about strategy, management, and leadership. And I learned that while a clear vision provides direction, the real magic happens when a team feels connected and aligned with that vision, and how important collaboration is to ensure success. So I've always really liked empowering others and teaching and sharing my knowledge. And there was a moment in my career where I was asked to reflect on whether or not I was ready to leave the tool behind. You know, as a manager, at some point, you're more focused on the people rather than on the craft itself. And it was a challenging question because I've always loved the craft, but I realized then that my impact could be far greater if I empower others to thrive and excel in their roles rather than trying to do things myself. So with this mind shift, it allowed me to embrace leadership fully. And I see my role as enabling the teams to achieve a collective potential and where they feel safe, supported, and inspired to push boundaries.
All right. Yeah, that's kind of extensive. So your role takes you to being not a hands-on, and maybe there's some different direction, or maybe some of you have the opportunity to do the both things. And I wonder how you connect those two fields. So being a leader, but also having this overview over the final product. Avi, Aristotle, do you have some different approach in your leadership field?
Yeah, I think from my side, I come from an interaction design background, so can code, can do some cool stuff with electricity, things like that, and kind of like went through Samsung, having my own startup, Vinted, and now Shopify. And I think coming from a very, very technical background usually creates a scenario where I have technical skills that sometimes the team does not have. So usually I would be more technical than the rest of the team. And I found that it's really helpful where I can jump in and help them out. I think management should be very much in the details, understanding everything that is happening on the product itself. And this just makes the designers faster, knowing and understanding how everything works or how everything plugs in with one another just helps the designers be faster. And that's like, velocity of the team is like a big metric of how you are able to get it done and deliver impact efficiently.
Yeah, that's interesting. So it actually, those soft skills mixed with the hard skills can lead to the development of the people you work with, right? So that totally makes sense. Aristotle, I wonder, when you've been becoming a leader, what was your road to develop those skills? Because I've seen Francisca and Avi had some path as entrepreneurs, so they had to somehow. I wonder how it was in your career.
That's a good question. Like throughout my career, I've been fortunate to work with many incredible leaders who empowered their teams and created the opportunities for growth. But in fact, so I'm currently working alongside some of the most well-established leaders inside my organization. But there is one person who stands out in my journey, throughout my career journey, and the person is Dr. ABJ Abdul Kalam, India's former ex-president and the missile man, Indian aerospace scientist. I had the incredible privilege of working under his supervision on satellite operations during my undergraduate studies. And trust me, it was nothing short of life changing. During that time, so I learned that leadership is not about the title uh, or a position you hold. It's about how you influence those around you. Literally, Dr. Abdul Kalam, his remarkable ability to make everyone feels like we're part of something much bigger than themselves. His leadership philosophy was very crystal clear. Leadership is the one who gives credit to the team on success and takes the blame for failures. And I saw him embody this every day, like giving credit to the team, empowering them, acknowledge their contributions while keeping the focus on collective effort. I remember how humble and grounded he was, and despite his incredible achievements, it wasn't about his title, it was about inspiring others to think, act, and contribute to the greater good. He didn't talk about problems, he always focused on the solutions. So in fact, I often joke with my team the leaders should have a solution tattooed on their foreheads because that's the mindset we need to foster, always thinking about what can be done, not what went wrong. It's easy to blame circumstance, but leaders take responsibility and their focus remains on the path forward. So it's all about influencing others positively, give them credit, and owning your mistakes with grace. And this is like, so I would say to aspiring leaders, it's this: lead with humility, always give credit with its due, and keep your eye focused on solution, not failures. This is how I inspire.
Yeah, awesome. I'm glad that you had a great mentor that you can learn from. Actually, I had a similar path in my way, so I know how great it is when you have some figure that you can learn from, and then spread this knowledge further.
Yeah.
So awesome, good thing. Then I've heard some interesting things in your stories before about mixing those soft skills with the hard skills, and overviewing the work and supporting on this hard skill level. And I wonder, what's your take on the, let's say, micromanagement versus transparency, some kind of drawing the line, not being too pushy, not being too inside of somebody's work, but at the same time keeping the quality and overviewing the this right check marks on the terms of the quality. Avi, maybe you will start with this one.
Yep, I think that overall you can define micromanagement in a variety of ways, and I think it has a bad name historically. It's not about how you tell people to do the work, which is the bad way, because every person is different. They have different skills, and they don't necessarily think the way you do. So diversity is a power, and by telling people how exactly to do stuff, you're diminishing that power. However, at the same time, you as a manager really need to be in the details, really understand the product. I think it's ridiculous that sometimes a team will work for like a month and then you will be surprised by what they did or what they chose to prioritize. I think those things should not happen. And so directing, being in the details, understanding how the product works, actually playing with the product yourself is key. And also participating sometimes with the design. Sometimes designers might be sick. You might want to go in and tweak and a few things, or empower someone else in your team to be able to do that. And I think, especially since there was a big flattening in the number of leaders that are now in big organizations, it is critical and is needed. The teams are like way smaller. It is needed for leaders to be a bit more player coach.
Okay, so from what I hear, I feel like it's some kind of being on top of what your leaderies are doing, right? But at the same time, being able to set the direction, being able to support along the way, sometimes overviewing the stuff, but it doesn't have to be necessarily like micromanaging thing. So it might be named wrongly. I get this point. Francisca, what's your take on it?
So I think that what Abby was describing is, I think, is like effective communication and collaboration, right? I think that micromanaging comes because there's that lack of transparency. There's this lack of collaboration inside the team that is kind of making this uncertainty, and people get this need to kind of like excessive control and like what is happening. So it's transparency that's kind of leading to the micromanaging. I think that when you build trust and when you have really good collaboration and when you establish a culture where everyone feels comfortable sharing challenges and updates and progress openly, and you have this kind of collaborative environment where you work the problem together, that's how you avoid getting to that micromanaging stage. So, and it also, as leader, is very important to have that understanding, because that's the way that we are able to strategize and communicate with other stakeholders. So it's very crucial for us to have that understanding of what's happening in the team. So I like to work the problem together with my team. So I ensure that I have that understanding and I'm able to strategize and communicate accordingly.
I like this part about figuring out stuff together and working as a team. Really important for myself and what I was achieving over the years. Aristotle, is there anything you would like to add on this one?
Yeah, like as Francisca said about the transparency, yeah, it's really important. But I want to clear something up, like about the over communication and the micromanagement. are not the same thing. It's about ensuring the clarity, the other is about control. But where do we draw the line? So I have seen it happen. Leaders who constantly check in on every detail, sending updates, asking for progress reports every hour. That's kind of micromanagement, and it stifles the creativity. Specifically, we are in the design and the creative environment. It makes people feel like they're not trusted to do their job. On the other hand, over communication is about making sure your team has the information they need without overwhelming them. So it's about sharing the big picture and ensuring everyone's aligned. Think of it like ordering a pizza. You want to know the status of your delivery, but you don't need a call every minute asking, is the cheese melting yet? So transparency is important, but too much is like drowning on detail. The key is balance. Be clear, keep your team informed, but trust them to handle the details. Share the visions, guide whenever it's necessary, but avoid stepping on their toes. Give them the space to lead with the confidence, transparency without overstepping. That's the sweet spot.
Yeah, I like this pizza reference. Like being too pushy sometimes might make the difference, but at the same time, I feel this a need of being on top what the team is doing, right? So it's our job to find the sweet spot and not to be too pushy. Awesome. So let's move to really close topic to my heart, since Netguru is remote first company. So we are leading the teams fully remotely for a few years now. And I wonder what challenges it brings, and do you have an experience working with such a setup of the teams? Maybe Aristotle, last question. You were the last one, so let's start with you this time.
Leading a remote team sounds easy, right?
Doubts.
You send an email, hop up on a Zoom call, and call it a day. But when you are thousands of miles apart, the real challenge creep in. How do you keep the team motivated? How do you maintain the productivity without a micromanagement? Or let's dive into that. I remember my first experience leading a remote team. We had team members in a different time zones, and communications felt like it was always out of sync. But I quickly learned that regular check-ins and clear communications were key. No matter where they were, my team needed to feel like they were a part of something bigger. We started using tools for real-time collaborations and scheduling catch-ups to maintain that connection. But remote isn't all smooth sailing. There's always that one person whose microphone doesn't work, or your dog makes an unexpected cameo during a serious meeting. It's not just about managing a task, it's about managing the chaos and creating sense of normalcy in the madness. So here is the deal, like communication is your lifeline. So keep your team connected, be transparent, and use the right tools for the foster the collaboration. It's about building trust, giving autonomy, and supporting each other. Even when you are miles apart, make remote work feel like a team effort, so not the distance challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get this. And once again, the balance is the key. And I heard many times from my teams, especially those working as a team extension in the big products, and finding this right way to pick up which calls are the one that they are fully needed there, and which one they are skippable, right? Or the other ones, which could be an email. That's the tough thing to deliver along the way. Francisca, is there anything you would like to add here? What's your take on it?
So I agree with Aristotle in that trust is foundation for setting effective remote teams. So it's about make people feel empowered of their work, but knowing that there's always support when they need it. I've always
Not
found
so much.
I've always found that setting clear expectations and clear outcomes as well, but giving the team freedom to approach the work in the ways that make sense to them also helps in kind of like fostering this or managing remote teams. But effectively, yeah, trust and communication, I would say, are critical to ensure that the teams are working effectively together. And just making sure that the communication has purpose and that it doesn't feel like time consuming as well. I think what you said before is very key. Like, you end up with so many meetings because we need to catch up, but how do you prioritize which ones are important and which ones are we not? So making sure that it's coming with purpose.
Thank you so much for this. I have some really interesting question from the audience. So it says, how do you actually turn a group of people into a team in a remote setting? This is something super important because having people on site in one room and then making them a team sounds easy, but how to do it with the remote setup? Avi, maybe you can answer this one.
I think there's a lot of rituals that you can engage in that would help the team feel a part. I think it's about how you onboard initially and find your way into the group. How much? I think a good remote worker generally is someone who is autonomous and accountable and is a great communicator. So as a part of that, people would have the ability to unblock themselves. However, if you want the team to feel like a team, you do create the water cooler space. You do create the games space. You do create an occasional meeting point, like physical meeting point. And you do create those rituals that kind of like anchor the team, like any team has. But generally, I think it's more critical to talk to one another. And at the end, like I sometimes say, Slack is the devil, because often if there is like an argument or like a disagreement that starts on Slack, if it's more than, let's say, 4 or 5 messages on a thread, then probably you should go on a call. Or alternatively, just record a video. People laugh at me that I live in 2x, and that's true, sometimes even more than 2x if I can, depending on how fast the person is speaking. But I feel like it's a very efficient way of doing stuff. And if I don't like a meeting, I just don't go to the meeting, and I'll just like catch up with it in double the speed. So it will take me half the time. And I think recording, doing things in people's hours and all that kind of stuff are the things that make people feel accountable, because you can very easily have like other folks in your team that are not in your time zone and just like don't record or don't report after the meeting. And then you definitely feel strange.
Mm-hmm. And the fear of missing out, most likely. I'm a huge fan of actually recording ourselves when we are even, I don't know, do some kind of briefing of something. I think it's a really nice tool to do so, especially that you have those additional cues, right? Not only some written message, which could be out of energy, emotion, stuff like that, but there's this additional given value that you're seeing someone, you hear their voice, their energy, the emotion. So it gives this better bond. So I hugely recommend using this one. I'm here on the same page, Avi, with you. All right, so we are almost 5 minutes left of our time, and I would love to run a tough topic, but it's a topic that feels really relevant for the times. So the times are uncertain, especially the last 2 years in our area of the product design and actually IT world in general was affected with some rounds of the layoffs, right? And this uncertainty of the times probably in some teams leads to some fears, etc. So it's even more important in such a times to work with team morale and to support them in some way. And I wonder if you have some experience how to run, I don't know, such meetings or to support your team to go forward in such a difficult setups and environments. Aristotle, maybe you would like to start with this one.
Yeah, so uncertain times can feel like navigating a ship through a storm. It's kind of in all the sectors. In business, priorities shift and resources get tight, and the future is unpredictable. So, how do we keep our design talented, engaged, growing, and performing at their best when everything feels in a flux? The answer isn't just about weathering the storm, it's about strategically using the storm to your advantage. So, been in the situations where the budgets were lost, deadlines were compressed, and there were general sense of uncertainty. But I learned quickly that uncertainty can be a powerful driver of creativity. In times like your role as a leader, it's not just to manage, but to align the uncertainty with the purpose. I started focus on giving my team clear directions and sense of ownership in the projects. So even if we didn't have all the answers, we focused on the agile processes in the constantly testing and iterating. So knowing that failures wasn't the setback, it was an opportunity to pivot and learn. So here is that clever plot, like when uncertainty is the backdrop, you have to double down on flexibility. Don't just provide the solution. Empower your team to design their own responses to challenges. Invest in a cross-disciplinary learning. So where designer can learn from marketers or product teams and the developers. So this creates a versatile talent that adaptable and can thrive in any environment. So to manage and grow the talent in uncertain times, so embrace the flexibility is the most important step, and empower your team with ownership and encourage a cross-functional learning. So that is the key. But it's leverage the uncertainty to fuel innovation and the growth. So now is the time to think strategically and build a resilient, so adaptable the team that can weather any storm. So the flexibility and adaptability is most matter to empower your team.
That's interesting point, Aristotle. Thank you. How does it look like from your perspective, Francisca?
I tend to agree in the first of all, you need to acknowledge reality, but I agree with Aristotle that it's very important to see how what you said is very powerful, how you use the storm to your advantage. So it's something that I always try to do with my team, is like, how do this changes and how does the uncertainty becomes an opportunity. So it's trying to make that shift from, yes, we acknowledge that this is something negative, but how can we make it an opportunity so that opens other doors and open growths in your career.
That's an awesome take. I actually had a similar discussion Web Summit last week with one of the head of designs, and I heard a similar perspective, and I think it really works in those tough times. We are close to the finishing line, but I would love to hear what you, Abby, have in your mind connected to this topic.
I think both what Aristotle and Francesca said is great. I have nothing to add.
That's perfect. So we are right on time with schedule. Team, it was a pure pleasure. Francisca, Aristotle, Adi, thank you so much. Thanks everyone listening, and have a great day. Cheers.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you.
all. Cheers.
Right. Hello, everyone. This is Christian from Netguru. I'm the AI consulting lead, and we have a very special guest, Hani Mittal from Locify. Hello, Hani. Good to have you here.
Hi, Christian. Nice to be here.
So on this session with next 20 minutes, we will explore Locofy solution and design to code kind of Gen AI driven efficiency in this area. So maybe you can tell us a few words about yourself before we will, dive into the actual solution.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Christian. Nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me. And hi, everyone. I'm Honey. I'm based in Singapore. And I'm the co-founder and CEO of Locofy.ai. Locofy is essentially a developer and designer acceleration tool that helps you, especially with front-end development and app development, by converting your designs into front-end code. And the idea is to get you to build your apps and products and innovate faster, and also to empower designers and engineers to let AI do the grunt work and for them to do the more high value work. Before Locofy, my background is in product management, so I was a chief product officer in 3 of Southeast Asia's very well known startups. One of them is a unicorn. The other one is reaching that stage. But they were in travel, healthcare, and fintech. And after about a decade of building that with my now co-founder, we decided to work on a global problem rather than just a Southeast Asia and Asian problem, and also to work on our own problems. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest problems we faced was, we worked in startups and we were finding it difficult to hire, attract, and afford good engineers, even despite raising a fair bit of money. Because there's always a better offer out there, and the supply of engineers in the world was just so limited that we decided, why not combine our passion of building amazing interfaces, irrespective of the platform, and marrying that with the need that hundreds and millions of companies actually out there face. Not everyone can afford a 10x engineer or attract a 10x engineer. Why don't we give that power to every builder, every company, and even future builders and students? So that's why we started Locofy about 3.5 years ago.
Yeah, that's the solution is really amazing. Like, we've also made a lot of tests and it works very nice. So you mentioned you're also product guy. So, and you've started saying about it, the main thing about what I was wondering, what is the main problem you wanted to solve, and who is your kind of user persona using this solution? What was the main reason actually you want to solve with this design to code?
Actually, that's a great, and my answer changes every year, because when you get into solving a problem, you start with a certain understanding, but you also have to be smart enough to evolve and adapt, and also be aware when the market is giving you certain insights. When we started, it was a simple question to my co-founder. So my background is in product management. I used to do coding, but I was also a designer, and I also was interested in the business side. And I'd spend enough time away from coding, but I can still talk to an engineer at length. My co-founder, on the other hand, was a gaming engineer turned Android engineer. The first Android app he wrote was in 28 days, and it became Asia's first editor's choice app on Google Play. Then he moved to front end because I asked him to move to web front end. And he, together with me, built the world's first progressive web app for travel, and that became the world's fastest. Even Google top execs, Sundar Pichai, they would show off that product at Google I/O. Then we moved to iOS, and this guy just kept picking up any framework, anything I threw at him: React, Polymer, Java, Kotlin, Swift, React Native, Flutter. He would just learn it as if he's been doing it for 10 plus years. Mm-hmm. And when we started thinking about solving our own problems, my question to him was, why should I think about the idea? You're the best engineer I know.
Yeah.
Possibly one of the best engineers in the world. If you're the best at everything, anything, you're always thinking of better ways of doing what makes you good, right? You're always thinking of, how do I make it cheap, fast, efficient? And the first thing that came out of his mouth was, I hate writing front-end code. He's amazing at it, by the way, but I hate writing the UI code from scratch. I've always worked in a small team. I spend 60% of my time making everything pixel perfect, because I'm his I was the product guy who was always I'm very particular about every pixel, the performance. There should be no widescreen. There should be no delays. It should be cheap and fast, and it should work on mobile phones in Africa as much as it should work on a desktop in the US. So his point was basically, I think, when a designer is doing the design, why should an engineer have to redo that work through code just to bring the design back to life? And of course, front end is not just UI, but UI development is a big part of it. And the moment he said, I can automate it, it didn't take me too long to be like, hey, that's a huge problem if we can solve it. And when we called up some of the best people we know, founders, product managers, engineers, designers, and backend engineers, like all kinds. The weird thing was within the first 48 hours, everyone we talked to either said we will buy this when it's ready, or they invested in us, or they joined us.
Yeah.
So we knew we were onto, and we knew we were onto something because, and within 48 hours, by the way, we started the company and we raised $1 million, and it's been the same ever since. We knew we are solving a real problem. It's just when we started, we thought we are solving this problem for front-end engineers and for mobile app engineers. What we didn't realize back then was that stakeholders like product managers, designers, back-end engineers, and full-stack engineers, and of course, app engineers also valued this a lot more. If anything, we realized, so you obviously know this, Christian, but Locofy was in free beta for almost 3.5 years. And the reason for doing that was because we said, until and unless the best engineers out there start saying, this is amazing, this fits into our workflow, I'm using it on a regular basis, I'm building my products now fast, and it's saving me time, and the code quality is great. Until then, we will keep it free, and we will just listen to engineers and keep our heads down and build. And I think that's where we started realizing that while front-end engineers, and rightly so, had highest expectations because it's what they do, it's what makes them great. We started realizing that designers were also very invested into using Locofy because they could control, or they could rather make sure that the end product was actually exactly what they designed. Because I'm sure you've seen this as well. Designers design something, engineers build something, and then they get together and the designer's like, hey, this is not what I designed. It doesn't match.
Those workarounds, shortcuts stuff.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because they're two different people, right? Front-end engineers are very logical, and they are very front-end focused, but designers care about every little pixel. So we realized, first of all, designers are not just stakeholders. Designers actually want to be part of this because they win, not just to help the engineers, but also to own the user experience because they care about what lands up in the user's hands. And then second thing we realized was backend engineers and full stack engineers loved Locofy even more than front-end engineers. Like now front-end engineers have started giving us positive feedback, and a lot of them are paying for it. But backend engineers and full stack engineers were like, hey, this is great because Locofy writes the code. It's not perfect. No AI will be perfect, but it's 80 to 90% there. I can take it and I can do the rest of the work, and I focus on the backend complex problems, the business logic, the backend to the front end, accessibility, all those things. So that was one of the things we realized, that even though we started building for front-end engineers, this actually is showing us already signs that the lines between design, UI development, the lines between front-end and full stack, I think AI is just kind of evolving in a way that it's no role will be exactly the way it was 10 years ago. And I'm not saying that roles will go away. I'm just saying that earlier, it was very clearly defined. A designer does this, a front-end engineer does this, a back-end engineer does this. And I think what tools like Locofy have done, maybe even unintentionally so in the last couple of years, is give everyone who's involved in building front-end the power to take their work to the next level and to have an upper hand. Kind of like what Figma did, right? With product managers getting involved with designers. We are seeing designers and front-end engineers and full-stack engineers coming closer with the likes of Locofy.
Yeah, amazing. So, since we have this is Disruption Forum Design Horizons event, so there are many people involved in the design phase. So, if someone didn't already see the solution, and the real-world applications, if you could tell a few words what actually Locofy is, how you can use it, on your day-to-day business. So to give the people overview on the platform.
Yeah, it's super simple actually. We are a Figma plugin. Every designer, UX person would know Figma very well, but we also exist on Adobe XD, but Figma is clearly I think the overwhelmingly prevalent design tool. So we are a plugin within Figma. Once you are done designing on Figma, you open up our plugin just like any other toolbox. You select your design, and you let Locofy do the work. It's literally as simple as one click. And if you have designed if your designs are structured properly, which means you group your layers properly, you use auto layouts, all the best practices that Figma recommends, then we will read your Figma design, we will make it go through our AI models, and we will generate the front-end code within 15 to 20 seconds. When I say front-end code again, it is mostly UI, static code, but we are adding more and more scripting, the option to add your libraries in your existing custom components. But within a few seconds, you get the initial front-end code, which is roughly 80% there. And we give you the tools to review our AI decisions. We also give you the tools to edit them, because the idea is if you spot something that's not up to your mark, we give you the tools to make those changes immediately. And when you're ready, we're not an IDE, but we give you the front-end code. You can either just export the code, copy paste the code, take just certain components code itself, and take it into your IDE. You can either pull it into VS Code using our VS Code extension, or if you're iterating on an existing product, then you can push it into GitHub, and we provide three-way code editor and code merge. So we have enough videos on our website. If you go to locofy.ai, there's a quick video which shows you how it works. But of course, the caveat over there is, like every AI looks like magic. We claim we are not like magic. Your designs have to be structured well, and the result you get from Locofy, it's 80% there, and it will let you build that UI in half a day maybe by fixing certain things, rather than doing it in 5 days from scratch. And we support all the public libraries. We also support your own design systems, and we're adding more and more functionality as we speak.
Yeah, it's really amazing. So if any of you haven't seen the website, there are like very interesting videos. I'm also wondering around the real world application. I saw that you mentioned that there are already 500,000 developers and designers, 3,000 companies. It's like amazing product market fit and some super cool brands. So I was wondering if you already know some, real world applications, considering also that with nowadays AI, you may have this amazing efficiency kind of impact, right? You also mentioning on your website that is like 10 times faster. So I was wondering if you already, what are the real world applications, if you can share like companies using it, how they are using it.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the idea behind it?
Yeah, so when we ran the product for free for 3.5 years, we obviously launched on Product Hunt, on Reddit, on Twitter, through word of mouth, obviously. 500,000 developers gave us feedback. And very recently, actually, just in September, we launched our paid plans. And we've already crossed 3,000 plus customers. Basically, they're either part of pay-as-you-go, because when it comes to AI, usage-based and consumption-based is coming back in fashion rather than seat-based. We have annual plans, and we also do enterprise deals. Some of these companies, as an example, would be Toyota, NTT Data. We have Infosys. We have students from pretty much any university in the world. We have 150,000 students basically who tried Locofy for free and continue to do so. Even now that we have paid plans, they are building products with Locofy for free, because that's one thing we're committed to. In terms of real life examples, we have actually published about 30 plus case studies on our website. They include examples like agencies, include examples like startups, including examples from early stage accelerators building an app 60% faster, 80% faster, or adding iterations to their existing products 80% faster. The caveat we have is that because we are only helping you generate the front-end code, and then the code is yours, you keep coming back every time you build a new feature, but how much and which part of the code you actually use in your production app is not visible to us. For example, we are not a Webflow. If you launch a website on Webflow, they know it's in production, and they know these are the examples that were built with Webflow. For us, because we don't provide the deployment, we only rely on what our customers tell us.
Yeah.
So the examples we've published on our website, the case studies we have, are only the customers who have come out and told us this is the product that I built with Locofy actually. But now that we're doing enterprise deals, for example, Infosys is one of the world's largest, I would say, innovation consultancies, agencies, as whatever you might want to call it. I think they have 500,000 engineers building for pretty much every company in the world. They initially came to us trying to use Locofy to build their internal products, and now one by one, all their customer teams are coming in saying, hey, there's an insurance company. I unfortunately cannot name their customers' names, but there's a huge insurance company in India. There's a huge private equity fund in the US. There's a GCC, like a Gulf countries, government that's doing a complete revamp of their website itself. These are products being built with Locofy, and I think as and when we start renewing contracts, we're still in the early days. We will start publishing a lot more of these examples with the consent of our customers. So the examples we have right now are primarily from the early free beta days, and that is on our website. I can send you the link if that helps.
Yeah.
But yeah, essentially there are tons of startups from every part of the world, 195 countries. Usually it's either early stage companies, agencies, big tech companies, and pretty much every company that's trying to be a tech company today that cannot attract the best engineers. As an example, right? Like this is not a fact, but let's say a Hyundai. Hyundai will attract the best automobile engineers and the best mechanical engineers, electronics engineers. It may or may not necessarily attract the best web engineers and mobile app engineers. Yet, a company like Hyundai would spend a lot of money on building digital products.
Yeah.
That's where Locofy is like an immediate fit straight away. In the companies that have the best engineers, it's mostly used for design systems because they are late stage companies. In early stage companies, it's used for building apps from scratch. Freelancers and agencies are obviously using it to build like multitude of projects, and we provide unlimited seats to our enterprise customers, which is why they love building for their clients. And it also makes them competitive within their own competition as well, because now their own customers are becoming savvy and saying, hey, I want to build my product faster.
Yeah, amazing. Sounds super practical, and also we've already like noticed from day one how it can streamline the entire process. So it gets me to the next question. You mentioned a lot about product management. I'm also a product person, and like I was wondering, what's the like next step for you? We have currently this AI hype, the big wave, everyone asking some questions, and basically, so how far it can go? What's the next big thing? What's the future for you? Like, what will be the role of design, development team, product manager? How do you fit in all this circle? Keeping in mind that people are saying, hey, maybe it's let's say the end of the role of the product manager as we know it, let's say, right? So I was wondering, what's there for you? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think with every new technology revolution, there will be a lot of claims. There'll be a lot of hype. I think with AI, unlike some of the previous hypes that I'm an investor in startups as well, and I try to stay away from some of these hypes. When it comes to AI, there is absolutely no doubt that it will bring productivity gains across the board, whether it's product management, design, engineering, finance, every role.
Yeah.
To say it will get rid of roles is, I think, a claim made by people who are actually not solving these problems. Right? Like in the early days of AI, there were so many of these influencers just saying, hey, software engineers will not have a job in 3 years. That's absolutely it's not very well thought of.
Yeah.
AI has to be seen as an assistant, quite frankly. AI, like we've seen LLMs, we try LLMs as well. We are building our own design models. Hand on heart, it does the job, but it will never replace a person. And I think that's where, when it comes to product management, I actually initially in the early days, I also felt, you know what, like I can do my research, I can write a PRD using AI. Yes, but AI is not doing the thinking for you.
Yeah.
You have to, like, I think the best product managers are not the ones who are just writing specs. They are the ones who are solving problems, identifying the right problems, identifying the right solutions, and getting it built with humans. That's what real product management is. If someone was a product manager who's just writing PRDs or just like doing some research, yes, they should be worried. If an AI can do that job fast, or 70-80% of the job, then maybe someone who's much younger, who is deep into these AI tools, can give you stiff competition. But a product manager, in my opinion, there was never a need of real good product managers as much as there is today, because if every product manager has access to the same tools, then the real product management value comes down to identifying problems and coming up with the right solutions, while everyone has access to the same research.
Yeah.
So I think I really think it has to be more of problem solving than breaking the work of a product manager that can easily be done by AI. I would say, why not use the tools that can really help you, that can help you with the decision process, but you still have to make the decision, and the quality of your decision and the quality of your solution is what will keep you apart. Same comes to designers, right? Like, there are tools that help you go from explaining something to designs, but if every designer can write the same prompt and get the same design, then pretty much all designs will look the same. So designers will not go out of fashion. Designers will essentially be building something unique, and they will have a unique take on solving a problem. And so is the case with engineers. Locofy gives you the code, but if you don't know how to do front-end code, then you won't know what is wrong with it. And if you won't know what is wrong with it, there's no way you can use that tool. So I think we should all embrace AI. We should like cut out the fluff and the hype about it, and really see how it can impact our jobs and make us better, rather than like be on the fence and not use it because we're in denial of some kind. I don't think it will take away jobs like crazy. Like, I don't think anyone working in the tech industry would be out of a job, but yes, it will help them evolve, and they should be looking at evolving with AI.
Which is, thank you very much for that. We are, almost at the end of our session. So for me, to wrap it up, at the end of the day, this is like finally focusing on the right thing, rather trying to solve your customer or client problem than writing a documentation that could be easily kind of robotized, right? So yeah, very interesting. Thank you very much, and big congrats for the platform, because it's really amazing and very practical. As you mentioned, there are many people having the same problems, and give you the ability to, first of all, scale the solution very fast, build the solution, and test it with your customers as soon as possible. And then still you need to have some people that will deploy it, work on it, change it. So yeah, still some front-end development will be needed. Thank you very much, Hani. It was very interesting. Thanks a lot for being here. For everyone now listening, please make sure you will comment and check the Locofy solution, because it's really, really amazing, and we will be more than happy also to answer some of your questions. So thanks a lot, Hani, and yeah, have a good day. Thanks.
Thanks for having me, and you have a good day as well. Take care.
Thank you.
Hello. Hi, guys.
How we doing?
Hello, everybody in the
What's
audience.
up? What's up?
Good to have you here. So today with me in our session about what's ahead, the landscape of UX research, I have Joe and Carlos. And if you could, guys, introduce yourselves to our audience, and I would like you to do it in a way that if I would ask one of your teammates what it is that you do, what would they tell us? You can pick a teammate though.
Oh, wow. That's a hard one. That's like saying, like, you know, what would my mom say I do for a living? Which is nobody knows. So I'm Joe Cahill. I've been doing design for 20 years, 24 years at this point. It is insane that it's been that long. And now I'm working with a team to push everybody. You know, if anybody asks what I do on a day-to-day, it is being the annoying voice in the room that's saying, like, don't take no for an answer. Let's keep going. Like, iterate more, think more, like push it more, push the boundaries of what we're doing. Because I'm annoying like that. And the only way we get design moving forward is if we get super aggressive about it. And I'm from New York, so that's kind of like the deal.
That's
so
your thing.
Yeah. Carlos,
All
what
right.
about you?
On my side, I've been designing for nearly 18 years. And if a team member would say anything, it could be, I'm always in meetings, but I'm always responsive. So it's like my calendar is popping and always kind of turning or putting down some fires or future fires. So I think it's the kind of the fine mix between the reactive and the kind of future fire that I can foresee and just kind of simmer it down so we just live a happy life.
Okay.
Yeah.
We could probably do an entire hour talking about too many meetings and time management within just that scope, because that is an art form. Like Carlos knows, like it's hard to balance like answering everybody back while you're still trying to like pay attention in a meeting. Like remote culture has made it kind of easy where I have two screens. I can like look at this and look at that, but it's when you're physically in person with people, it is it's a lot.
Crazy.
So we could, but we won't. So we will talk about the future of research and what's ahead. Because, me and Netguru, I'm an innovation consultant. I have no idea what would people say about me. Hopefully something very, very good. And that I have a wonderful sense of humor, for example. But we're all dinosaurs. We've been in the field for many, many years. And we probably all remember 2019. And the reason I mentioned 2019, specifically June, is because I'd like to start with a short exercise. If you would close your eyes and imagine yourself in June 2019, what was the future of research? What was ahead?
Oh, wow. June 2019, the world was all in front of us.
And you didn't know. There was no COVID. There was
nothing.
That's
wild.
What was there, right?
Yeah. It was, oh God, it was the future of research was being in person and being with people and having more user testing in person. And like, that's what was our gauge, right? It was having these tests in front of people that it was like you can gauge their reaction, you could read their body language so well. You know, the idea that all that is now kind of trying to be put through here is just, for lack of a better term, batshit crazy. Because I'm just like now studying, trying to be insightful while looking at somebody and being like, okay, are they twitching? Are they struggling? Like, are they wincing in their face? Oh, they're frozen. What are we gonna do?
Can we have AI analyze it for us?
Yeah, yeah. That's a beautiful part of the AI integration into research, right? Definitely did not think of that in 2019.
Probably not. Carlos, what were you thinking of in 2019?
I think we were actually building a very strong user research team. And yeah, I think it was, we were very heavy in the qual, kind of bringing people into the room, speaking to them. I think we're so far away from the physicality of things. And I think we turned it around to this whole remote setting, like Joe said. But I think that we learned to coexist with it. I think, yeah, just a new blocker, a new opportunity, and either it made us more versatile in research, because you could be potentially in two places at once. You know, you could be doing a user test in Nigeria and one in New York time or whatever. But it also kind of lost that the human side of things. So yeah, that's kind of where we were.
yeah, that's a very interesting point, because that's the beauty of it, right? Like our user pool now is exponentially larger. You know, and I can run a user test on certain softwares that'll run while I'm sleeping, and then I wake up and I'm like, holy shit, 30 people responded and did the walkthrough of the prototype, and I have those insights like right away. And it's definitely an area that would in 2019 I would have never thought would be as easily accessible as it is now.
As a byproduct, because of the whole pandemic and all that, thanks to user testing and all these other tools, it gave people new potential roles and job opportunities to user test more products. So I think that we had more volume of people, and if you got either laid off or you're just starting out and you wanted to test an app 5 hours a day, I think that from your sofa, I think that was good in that way. So.
Yeah, especially from a business end on cost, like trying to get user testing approved, and say like, hey, so now we have to do casting and we have to find a space to do and we have to do this. It's more just like, so it's going to be like $80. We'll get 45 people overnight.
Yeah.
You good? And they're just like, yeah, no, that sounds great. All right, perfect.
Yeah, but it's interesting how the things we are excited about in the field of research and UX change. In 2019, it was, hey, I'm going to go to Nigeria to do my test on site. And then in 2022, it was, well, I can finally do it in Nigeria and New York at the same time, and I can do it remotely. And there are so many wonderful online tools that allow me to do it right now. And I have access to so many more users. At the same time, questions came. Was the quality of insights the same? Like you mentioned, we're missing out on something. Did you guys notice? What do you think about the quality of insights we get and how it influences the quality of products that we make?
I can take it from Joe if you want. I can start.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say that we had more volume. I don't think that the quality went up, but I think that it's the designer's role and responsibility to dissect and understand those learnings, because like I said before, we have more than ever. Like we have more, like you can track, you can have all these insights, you can sprinkle AI, you can do all of that, summarize. But at the end of the day, it's kind of based on your own opinions and expertise to understand if what is coming in through the funnels, through the tests, through the videos makes sense, and you grab those insights and repurpose into beautiful working products. So yeah, I don't think it got better. We got more of it, and yeah, we just got to do a better job of interpreting.
Yeah, 100%. It's that quality versus quantity idea, right?
Yeah.
Like, granted, I could have 5 really in-depth, deep user sessions where I'm asking questions and getting more insights. But if I'm trying to validate an experience or validate a flow or validate, hey, we're moving buttons around or we're changing type hierarchy or we're changing content that way, I can get 150 people and get, like you're saying, like it may not all be quality, which is true. But then we also get that that validation that oh, guess what? It did really well with 150 people versus the 5. I think it's like you said, we have to go through the videos. Like I've gone through videos on user testings, and in the first 30 seconds, people didn't understand where to click. And then it was another 10 minutes of them complaining and they signed off. And luckily with most of these tools, you can just rerun that same test. And it's not it's not a burnt session, and you can hope for the next person to have more success with how it works. And
and you can validate much faster as well, right? Because we don't have to now schedule the test and schedule. I mean, we still do some scheduling of users, but we have so much variety of tools that we can use to validate our ideas, designs, concepts as we go. But now I want to fast forward from 2019, 21 to 24. And, a couple of weeks ago, or over the course of the past several weeks of months, we've had several papers published about those, generative models that have, simulate users. They're trained on real users, on real data. They predict. They actually remember. Their memory is very good as the real people. They predict personality traits. They predict behaviors in a very similar way to how people do it. Do we need people? Can we just use those simulations to that? I mean, I don't know.
I would say we always need people because, and we're going to talk about AI, right? We're going to talk tons about AI. That's what this entire day is about, right? Talking about AI. AI is parity. AI learns and is a clone of what a person is. The one thing AI doesn't do well is be frustrated. And I think that's where our key pain point is when it comes to certain products. I just recently downloaded a new app and for recipes because I love to cook. And I was looking at the app. I look at the app from 2 lenses, as a UX person and from an actual user person. So it's as I'm playing with it, I'm like, man, this is frustrating. Why doesn't it do this? Why does it do it here but not there? And that's something that AI may not be able to replicate because that's my experience using it. And I have all the wealth of who I am as a human being and my background in product and my background with usability as a person in this world, that it's going to get close. It can give us certain instances of hey, best practices, but I think it'll never replicate what comes from inside. I think that's always the human factor that'll always trump it.
Yeah, I agree. I want to build on that, Joe. you can't kind of build on that frustration or the awkwardness or kind of that obvious human emotion. And I currently work for a beautiful company called Iwoka, and we provide small business loans. And the thing that you can't predict is you can build perfect flows. You can give and help people, credit assess and give them everything in a minute, and everything's amazing. But when you go further down the line, if they need to kind of repay back a loan and they're in distress, or a partner died, you can't train the edge cases that are 1, 2, 3, 4 parts away. And I think that's kind of where the human element is. And responding to your question, Agatha, do we still need humans? I definitely think you need empathy, and that's kind of human 101.
We have a nice question from the audience that I'd like to ask that kind of builds on that. So can AI tools that are embedded in our work as designers actually help us predict the needs of our users? So, discovery.
I would quickly say no without taking so much thought. I think that it's AI helps you on the present and the past. It doesn't dictate the future. It will help you understand. I mean, you are always able to connect past dots and all of that, but it doesn't give you a roadmap. It's up to you to decide where you want to take things. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents.
Yeah, I would agree. I think life's unexpected. The world's unexpected. The data models and AI can predict certain aspects of it, based off of where it might pull its research from, but it will never. If I read an AI model in June of 2019, I doubt it would have came back and be like, guess what? Buy masks, get hand sanitizer, because the next 8 months are gonna be a ramp up to something wild. It's not gonna be. I doubt it will know that much about what's actually going on in this world. I think who knows? Maybe it'll surprise us.
I think there are scientists who might argue with you here.
I'm sure. Are they feeding the data models? That's the question.
Yeah. Okay. On the other hand, though, generative AI, it's about generating ideas. That's one point that makes me think that maybe it could be. I'm not sure about predicting needs, but imagining possible needs that maybe don't come to our human minds right away.
Okay.
And the second thought I had just lost, so I'm just gonna stop it.
Live TV, folks. Live TV.
Articulate today, but yes. So it can, I guess, be helpful in pointing us into ideas worth exploring, maybe going away from user research, maybe then now into this discovery research that can be desk research and all sorts of research. How do you see the future of that, knowing we have AI today and who knows what's going to happen?
Joe, you want to go first?
Yeah. So me and Carlos have been doing this for a while. I remember a day, and this is the evolution, right? I remember a day where I had to go to bookstores and go to buy magazines that had design inspiration in them, or I would go to the stores and look at, if I was designing for product, I would go look at product now. And I'd go in the store, I'd take pictures and be mad creepy about it. And store owners would be like, what are you doing? Why are you taking photos? I'm like, yo, man, these packages are fucking tight. Back then, we didn't have Google. Back then, that was our core way of gathering information. Photoshop. I started off on Photoshop 4. For all of you keeping track, that was 1997. Many people might not have been born then. I get that a lot. Back then, the Photoshop then and the Photoshop now have just increased our level of creativity, giving us time to think more, giving us time to create more, because it's taking a lot of the grunt work off. Gen AI is doing that now in a lot of ways in weird parts of our experience, right? If you told me 10 years ago I would be putting together concept art and websites and applications that have like real-ish data inside or real-ish copy that I cannot lorem ipsum it. I can tell you how big the text boxes are going to be, what the character counts are going to be. You know, it's a different experience. And for me to sell to a client or to a stakeholder, like, hey, this is where you can be, it reads so much more to it. You know, sometimes they think that like those words are Bible, and I'm like, no, this is just AI. It's just, you know, just a concept. But that's how it helps. Like it's our tool. It's always going to be our tool. Our evolution in design has been picking up new tools, throwing them in our toolbox, and using them when we need them.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's always going to be something that's gonna help us along the way and make things easier. You know.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I want to piggyback quickly on that. I think generative AI and anything that comes out of the creative realm is amazing. I think that we're forcing too much. We're starting off with the end tool rather than the outcome. It's like it's like, I don't know. I want to cook chicken tonight. How can I use AI? And I think it's more like, what do you want to do, and what are the best tools that will help you get there? We're kind of like, I know that we're designers or developers or PMs, and we're living in kind of this digital world, and like, it's obviously AI is behind all of this, but I think we're trying to be over reliant on it, and it's only potentially as good as what you feed it and the questions that you ask yourself. So if you are not asking the right questions and you want to create like this beautiful desktops or pitch to the client, you're only as good or as bad as yourself or the weakest link next to you. So the human error of like, hey, you can't potentially think further and or dissect what comes back to you. It's kind of, it stops as far as you can go.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
We have an amazing question from the audience. I absolutely love this. So in the UX world today, research UX world, what is this one trend or buzzword that is being brought up constantly that triggers you, that you just don't like, you're fed up with it?
Oh, AI. 100%.
I love it. Me too.
And here's the reason why. Yes, like it's going to be our future. It's going to be our tool. It's going to be something that we're going to use for the future from now. But everybody right now is like, we need to shoehorn it into our application. We need to get AI. That's my favorite. Like, how do we make this AI? And I'm like, that's not a thing. That's not how it works. You need data scientists. Connect to ChatGPT. Yes, but no, that's not how it works. I think 100%. I think that's something that just drives me nuts a lot now. Because it's, you know, it has to be thought through. It has to be a meaningful like journey along the way.
Yeah.
I would say that too, and I would sprinkle two more: Figma and design systems. I mean, I love Figma. I use Figma every day, but again, it's just an ends to a mean. Like you used Photoshop 4. I started with AutoCAD and like crazy codes, Publisher back in the day, and I think that these are layers of execution above what you have to do. So you could have always done a design system, you could have always done a component, a variable, an auto layout, all these things, but they don't help you move product. They can help you scale product, but if your designs or buttons are inaccessible, if you don't understand what performance looks like, your website and mobile app or CRM or CMS is always going to fail. And you're just going to build hundreds of thousands of UI components and buttons that are going to be crap or not accessible or all of that. And you can, even rename your layers with AI and all of that, but you're still building crappier products faster. Like, doesn't matter if you use Agile, Kanban, whatever the hell you use, you're accelerating your death.
Yeah.
100%. And the term design system, nobody fully understands it still. It makes me laugh.
It's like everything, yeah.
It's like most people I see, they're like, oh, we'll send you our design system, and I'll get a Figma page that is more or less a style guide to a website versus an actually engineered, validated system. God forbid design tokens are being used. I'm never gonna. I hope for that. It's very rare that it happens, but I think that's one of the things, right? It's once people hear the term, they think they want it, and then they build something close to it, and you're just like, oh, well, yeah, no, we're almost there. And Carlos, you hit it on the head too. If you start with something shitty, it's only going to get shittier, right? Like it's not. You have to take the time to take a step back. Like I don't know how many times I've had to say, so this isn't accessible, and they're just like, oh, what's accessibility? Like what's not accessible about it? And I'm like, from a design end, it's color contrast. From a tech end, I looked at the back end, and there is not one ARIA tag or one like metadata written in anything. So
that's true.
Yeah, that's I love that you mentioned accessibility. So important, and so happy to have it in conversations more and more often right now in the tech world. We have a couple of minutes left, and I would like to end on a very positive note. So I would like for you to share with us what is it that excites you about the future of UX and research. What is it that if you were to, inject some young spirit, young student who is thinking about their careers with passion for research and UX, how would you do it? What would it be?
Carlos, I'll let you kick this one off.
Don't be quiet.
I would say, and I've had this question last week in another talk. I would definitely recommend learning how to pitch, how to sell, because even if you get into research or design or you use AI, the best designs are the ones that actually get built. And if you don't know how to validate or convince your stakeholders or clients, your boss, whoever, or a developer, it doesn't matter what you do. I think that we're over reliant on our core skill, which you're supposed to be good at. If you want to be a product designer, you got to be good at design. If you want to be a researcher, you got to be good at asking questions, being curious, all of that. But if at the end of the day, when you have all the script, all the insights, and you don't you're not able to communicate to designers, to developers, to PMs, you're always stuck again at that middle ground. And I think that learning how to pitch, how to storytell, how to sell in general is going to cross over, because you're always in a negotiation. You're always speaking, selling yourself, speaking to users, representing your company. And I think that whatever you do, the art, if you master the art and science of converting, selling, pitching, whatever you want to call it, presenting, you're going to be good for life.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a reason why we're doing this for this long, right? It's always exciting. It's always changing. It's up to you to stay up with it, right?
Yes.
It's like I have friends. I am 44 years old. I'm on the old side. I have friends who are 44 years old that don't know how to use their iPhone. Meanwhile, I'm like coding for it. So it's always keeping up with what you need to do next. Follow the trends, like understand them. Even if you don't use them, it's good to know. Will you use it? Maybe, but the love for this is deep, and it never gets boring. That's for sure, because people are unexpected.
And isn't it super exciting that we actually get to do this in actually whatever domain there is out there? Aviation,
wherever you want to do.
Sure, I'm going to do it. Car, healthcare,
You have a great idea, create it.
Exactly. That's fascinating.
And keep all your friends at an arm's length when they go, I have a great idea for an app. Can you help? Like, all right, tell me about it.
Validate
it. We have 1 more minute, and I'm giving you an open mic to share one last thing with our wonderful audience here.
We're 200% going to get cut off with 1 minute.
I'll go really quickly. I think that the world for designers and researchers in general is kind of all melting and kind of becoming this hybrid role of like, you're a little bit of a PM, a developer, a marketing. And I think that if you're learning how to communicate and do a little bit of the other person's job, or learn how to speak their language and skills, we're all kind of jumping on everyone's role a bit. And I think that it's a good thing in a way and a bad thing in many ways. So we're all kind of full stacking. So I wouldn't be so hyper focused unless your company or your clients require it. Be a bit more open, like Joe said, adaptable, and learn and be part of the tools and trends and everything that's happening. So I wouldn't be hyperly focused on one thing, just open it up.
Yeah, I always tell people you don't know how to rebuild a car, but you know how to drive one, right? Like if I'm working with an engineer, I'm not going to say like, hey, make this div tag this, make this that. I'm going to be like, but I understand how the modules go together to the bigger components and how the page is built. So it's empathy, baby. That's how it works.
Empathy, baby. That's a very nice last statement for our talk. Thank you guys very, very much. It's been super exciting to have you here, and let's keep on listening to our next conversation.
Thank you for inviting.
Woo! Bye.
Bye.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our panel discussion on AI-augmented design, so scaling creativity and efficiency without compromising quality. My name is Bartek, and I'm senior product designer that is passionate about exploring how technology can amplify creativity in the design process. And today I'm joined by Soren, a design director from Cinch. Thank you so much for joining us. But rather than me doing all the talking, Soren, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your role at Cinch?
Sure. Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Sören. As Bartek said, I'm a design director at Cinch. I'm based in Munich, Germany. Cinch itself is a global company. I have colleagues all around the world, from Australia through India, through Sweden, where the company originally came from, to the US, to Brazil, really all around the world. And at Cinch, we connect businesses to customers via a variety of channels like SMS, RCS, email, or WhatsApp, and also, again, all around the world, really. At Cinch, I lead the design for content and lifecycle team and marketing. And we focus on creating impactful, brand-aligned content, and that at a scale. And in my nearly 20-year career in design and media, I have seen like how different technologies have changed over time. Some technologies have risen, and the same now goes, of course, for AI. And especially with my team at Cinch, but at Cinch in general, we are really exploring how AI can help us in our daily life, in our day-to-day jobs, to scale our creativity in a way, while, of course, maintaining our high standards. And so I'm really looking forward to this talk, to discuss some of these huge questions around AI. Agatha, Carlos, and Joe, just in the talk before, already brought up some really good points. I think that we can hop on to discuss. And I think it's really interesting. Most of the talks we heard today were mostly from like the product perspective and from product design. So I think with some points from a marketing perspective and design for marketing, I think I can bring in some other points here. So thank you so much to Netguru for the invitation. And yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's actually a true that most of the talks were focused on the product, and here we'll be talking a little bit about brand strategy and marketing. So I'm really curious, and I would love to hear from you. How is your team currently using AI in your design workflows, and what specific processes or tasks does it enhance? And how has it helped speed up the overall design process?
I mean, I've got to be honest, we are still overall in the very early phases of exploring how we can use AI in our workflows. But already we've seen some really significant promise. So there are a couple of things that we are already doing that is mostly the types of things that Adobe has implemented in their solution, that Figma has implemented in their solution. We are working a lot in Figma. Thing is, especially the Figma parts are more oriented towards product design, UI design, of course, but then especially in the Adobe and the Photoshop, what is there, just like expanding images or like just tweaking and refining smaller details is a kind of task that previously would have taken like hours to do, to like fine tune, paint around, whatever. And now I just put a rough mask, say like, okay, please add this or that. And then I can just select the results and see if it's good enough, or maybe like paint a little bit of detail. But yeah, it's already the efficiency that we get from that, and the work times have drastically reduced just through these. And then we are really looking into like what are the points in our workflows, in our daily workflows that we can enhance with AI. One really large point is the question of using stock photos for certain things, which just the research, if you need something very specific, takes a lot of time. So that's like one of the spaces where we are looking into different things. And so right now we are running different trials with systems like Run Diffusion, Think Diffusion, Adobe Firefly, just to see like, okay, how can this contribute to our workflows and make us better.
Mm-hmm. And so I'm just being curious, do you have any tool that you like the most from those that you just mentioned, or you are exploring all of them and for now it's too early to say which one is the
I mean, for now, overall, it's too early to say. What I really like about the Adobe approach is that they are just implementing the solutions into the existing tools. It's not a completely new tool, a new UI, a new structure that we need to learn, but it's really just, okay, I'm used to Photoshop. I've been working with Photoshop for I don't know how many years now. And it's just new functionality in there, in the tools that I already use in my day-to-day work. So I think that is really great. And they have made some impressive updates just in the past few months and weeks. So yeah, that's what I really like.
Okay, thank you. I think that one of the challenges with using AI in design is making sure that it produces work that feels consistent with your brand. Yeah, and especially that you work for marketing team. So I wanted to ask you, what strategies do you use to ensure that AI generated work maintains brand consistency?
I think yeah, as you say, it's a huge challenge because yeah, I cannot understand like things like tone of voice or brand identity. I mean, you can theoretically decide, okay, I'm going to train like a whole new AI model just on our brand, and then the output will be brand conform. But the reality is like that's a level of scale that is not feasible for us and for most marketing teams, because yeah, like that's just too much. So the question is like, how do you give it the guardrails that you need? And like one of the very big things is that we don't use AI as like the magic one-click solution button. So nothing that goes out is just a fully AI generated image or graphic. Like that will never happen. AI will always be a tool in the pipeline for specific steps. That's how also we can use like different AI tools for different steps depending on what is needed at that point. But in the end, it always needs like the human touch, or like the hand of a designer who brings it into the brand conform space. But of course, and that's where we are right now in the experimentation, that we are looking into these systems like around diffusion to see, okay, how can we configure these control nets, all these different factors that you can play around with in there, in a way to deliver you the output that is close enough to the brand style that with just some few adjustments, you can then use it for whatever you want to use it for.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned a very important thing, I believe, that AI working like a standalone tool is not something that we will be seeing in the future. It's rather a mix of the human and computer and AI. So I wanted to ask, in which areas of the design do you feel AI has the most potential, and where does it fall short?
I mean, as I already mentioned, like stock photos. So to make it maybe a little bit broader, let's say footage. Just like right now, what you had to do was like go out and photograph things, or of course buy it from a stock library. Or if you need video, you had to go out and shoot things, and like you had to have that input, and like that production. It's a lot of effort. It's a lot of time, and it's also a lot of like what's the right word? Like it's you can't really ensure that everything is the way you need it. Is on brand when you produce this kind of thing. So I think, and that's AI has a huge potential to not fully replace that. There is still definitely a place for good photo shoots for things, but especially for like the quick like social asset productions, it can really help you speed up this process and give it to you there. And same as I said, like everything needs to be touched by someone. I don't believe AI is the right choice for like the finishing touches, the confectioning of things. Like I can definitely see a world where like you have some standardized frames and AI can put them over that, but the finalizing, the final approval, the final double checking that there is no typo, etc. We just can't rely on AI to deliver that, because there's always like room for the hallucinations, for the issues that AI brings with it. So it always, before anything goes out, it will always need a double check.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, we are like spinning around the human that is important in this process, and adopting AI often means a shift in how teams work and think. Yeah, so these designers may need new skills or even new ways of collaborating with one another and with the AI itself. So how do you prepare your team to the challenges of working with AI tools?
I mean, the reality is AI is kind of unavoidable, like especially in design. That's the reality of it. We work with it now. We are just at the beginning, but it's coming more and more. And I don't believe there is a way around it at the moment in this kind of area. The question is, how do you use it? How do you enable everyone to use these tools, to play around with it now, and to later really work with this? And I think that's the way to go, and that's everyone else on the team has to do. And so when I said that we are in the very early stages of doing this kind of research, like the whole team is part of this process, and doing the experimentation and testing out these different systems and playing around and figuring out like, okay, how can this serve us better and make us more efficient? And so we have that level of the do-it-yourself education, and then we also actually we go out and try to find additional educational resources for the team. Like we went to the Design Conference Forward Festival in Berlin and did a great workshop with the Michael Jonas, who is a professor from the Brand University, and around like very practical, very hands-on around creation of images with AI systems and all of these things. And like that was what originally kickstarted our whole process of going this way and creating this kind of almost task force to start the research and figure out how it fits into our workflows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see the same at Netguru, that for the moment it's really unknown what the future will bring and how it will actually impact the design process. We are trying, but we are not there yet. But hopefully one day we will be able to use it at its full potential. So yeah, AI can be actually a powerful tool, but with great power it comes great responsibility. Yeah, so we have actually a question from the audience. How do you feel about ethics here? Yeah, so what are the ethical responsibilities of designers when using AI tools?
It's complex and complicated, and I think maybe to take a slight step back even. The question is for me also is like how do we as a brand want to come across, like when someone visited our website or sees a video from us or sees a social post from us, like should it be an obviously AI generated image that is the first touch point that someone has with us as a brand? And I think there is a huge risk in that because there is a sentiment around AI. And if I look at the new Christmas campaign from Coca-Cola, to go to like a completely different type of brand, like they now release their Christmas advertising and it's completely AI generated, or at least they claim it is. I'm very sure that especially around the actual company logos, there was a lot of like manual retouching in there. But you see it, you watch this video and it has this feeling of this, you could call it AI slop. There's like a blurriness to the movement. You just see it and you know it's not real. And I think every brand has to make this decision. Is this how we want to represent ourselves outside? And so when it comes to human models, I think it is a huge risk to do that, and that every company, every brand has to really think hard of if that's what they want to do. And when I talk about how we can implement it into our pipelines, it is mostly about like detailed shots, about objects like that we need in a very specific context, where previously we were researching through the stock photo databases and we needed like a set of car keys in like this kind of angle and in a way that we can easily cut it out and use it in our brand world. And that type of research just took more and more time, the more specific the request was or the need was. And these are the kinds of things where I can see the huge potential for us to generate something with AI. And to be honest, if I need like, in our context, we have a lot of people interacting with their phones. And if I need like a person interacting with their phone, like there are more than enough real stock photos of real people in good poses. And we also do our own photo shoots around that to be even more in our brand style. And that's an invaluable resource. Why would I replace that like the effort of trying to generate a photorealistic person in AI, when like then we always come back to the, like, is it worth the time invest, and how quickly do I get results that are to the standard that I need them? And when we talk about objects, that's like, then it's good. And when I talk about humans, then then the scale completely tips, because yeah, we just know how a human person is supposed to look. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that like this questions around ethic and around AI, this is something that will raise even more in the future, and I'm really curious what actually the future will bring. But as we look ahead, AI is likely to become an even bigger part of the design process. But what that looks like, it's still being defined. Yeah. So how do you see AI reshaping the role of designers in the future?
I mean, I already talked about like what is happening right now in tools like Photoshop, like Figma. The time savings is real. We see that immediately. Tasks that took like hours previously we are now able to do in just a couple of minutes. So I think for these kinds of tasks, AI really can take over the heavy lifting, the work that was manual, but not the work that was creative. That's the thing, because in the end, the creativity is the decision to say like, okay, I want to change this photo in this way because I need this and that, because I need B and C. And this creative decision, I don't believe AI can take that over. You can use it for inspiration. You can use it to like play around with things. But in the end, you need a human to make the decision what needs to go where, and how do I want to arrange things in the end. And I think we can also see that like how all these AI tools now enable especially much smaller teams to achieve things on scales that previously only large teams could do, which is going to be a challenge. Then the other challenge from the other side is going to be like, how do you justify larger teams in the end? And but I still believe there is this core creativity that needs this human touch, because otherwise everything just comes exchangeable. And how I think Carlos in the previous talk mentioned how AI basically can only look into the present and the past and connect the dots there. It can't look into the future, and it can never give you an actual new idea, because that's not what it does. It can give you inspiration to maybe go there, but it can never give you a new idea. It's just a kind of remix machine in a way.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we have just 1 minute left, and there's another question from the audience. Which AI-driven changes at work you really love? Yeah, so is there something that you really love and you're looking forward to even enhance in the future?
I think it really is that that kind of speed that I get when I work with the tools. Like I said, I've worked for 20 years in design and in media in different ways, and when I look at the time that I quote unquote wasted, like doing tedious things to get to the point where I needed, while my brain was already, okay, I get this, I do this, and I want to go there. And like the way that these new tools now speed up how we can work, so that we are getting to the point where the tools, the technology finally is able to keep up with the speed of human creativity, because before it was always we always had to go through this bottleneck of the technology to get to the results that we wanted to. And I think that is just amazing for the creative process.
Yeah, I totally agree that now we are able to design faster and speed up the process. So yeah, great. Thanks for sharing your insight and experience today. It was really fascinating to explore with you how AI is shaping the future of design and what that means to all of us. So thank you, Søren, again for joining us. And as it was our last panel today, thank you all for joining us, for all of your questions. And I just wanted to mention that Disruption Forum will have another meetup, Engineering Horizon, on December 3rd. So hope you see you there. So thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks.